Hello, and welcome to Intention Ascension. So, today I want to talk about soul contracts. And these are so important to us because they're also what contribute to our dark nights of the soul and also our mission, help shape who we are and where we are headed. So, when we have soul contracts, we're looking at past lives, we're looking at unresolved business, but we're also looking at spiritual warfare. And this is one of my favorite parts because I do believe that in my life personally, there has come a point in time where I am no longer doing things based off of karma. I do not feel as though I am any longer facing obstacles due to karma. And it's such a freeing thing because I can truly look at everything as a lesson and how it's shaping me. So there was absolutely a point in time where I'm like, ooh, that happened because I did blah, blah, blah. Or there have been certain things, certain situations in my life where I'm like, this could be contributed to past life. But I do believe that with the amount of time that I've spent in my spirituality, developing myself and self actualization and doing all that deep inner work, childhood trauma, subconscious rewiring, finding my purpose, helping others, giving back, being in the counseling field for almost a decade now, it's it's to the point where I'm like, whoo, what is this going to do for me? Like, this doesn't feel good. I'm upset. I'm mad. I'm pissed off. I got betrayed. But it's so much easier to just like wipe your hands clean of it and call it a day. Especially in like relationships and friendships. And then also how deception comes in too, right? So I had made an executive decision at a point in time that I was not going to be in a relationship. And I was starting to notice a pattern of the people that I was becoming involved with romantically. And there were a few key ingredients to their personalities that I was attracted to. And when we look at the deception and the darkness coming in, it's like they get a little bit more masterful every time. So it's like it's almost like you start building your like checklist of things that like you will accept in your life and things that you won't accept in your life. And with each person, there was like another box that I didn't know existed that got added on, or there were attributes of previous relationships that I really liked that then I then found in this next person. And so it got to the point where I recognized that in order for me to fulfill my mission and my purpose and what I'm doing at this point in time in my life, and the last few months, a relationship is not what is built into that, right? And so I came to that conclusion. And then I started to see the deception coming through my friends. And it was wild. It was absolutely wild. Like I was losing friends left and right, and people were dropping off the face of the earth. It was just the weirdest thing, right? Even like friends that I'd had since elementary school. And I'm like, what's happening? Like, it doesn't make any sense, but I'm just going to trust that it's happening for a reason. And the enemy, I think he gets more craftful every time. He is like, oh, okay, well, you're not going to go for this, but you're going to go for that. Now, when deception comes to us, it it's not obvious. It's not like we really have to have that discernment. And so I showed a picture of someone that I had been really close to another very spiritual friend of mine. And they were looking at them and they were like, yeah, like, don't you see the evil in their eyes? Like, can't you see that this person has something sinister to them? And looking at them now, and I'm not saying that anyone's permanently sinister or anything like that, but when the enemy is working through those who are around us, they're victims because of their lack of work that they've done. So they easily become puppeteers for holding us back in our mission, right? And so I'm showing this picture, and because of what I eventually learned about that person, when I see their picture, I can now see past this facade, right? But when that person who never met this friend of mine identified it immediately, it goes to show how there is this sheep's and wolf clothing, or like a cloak that's over them, just like how they say love is blind. And so it's so obvious to the people that are around, like, hey, this isn't good, that isn't good. But then we get stuck in making justifications, excuses, and they're not always so in depth or crazy. They're not so wild that there's a part of you that doesn't even want to say them out loud. Like, you do genuinely believe, like, this is this person's this way because A, B, C, D. They struggled with addiction, they had childhood trauma, they lost their job, they're just getting things back together, they went through a divorce. Well, we have to stop making excuses for other people's behavior, and that's a lack of boundaries for ourselves, right? So when we're so I show this picture and they see this, and I still, when I look at it, like, I know this person now, I know what they're capable of. And I was able to like tie in these other characteristics that really didn't actually affect me much. However, if I would dove down in that hole with that person, I would have eventually fallen flat on my face, and things would not have been pretty. I would have felt trapped. I would have done something that I wouldn't have wanted to do, along the lines of like ghosting, or just like disappearing in a moment when they truly need me. Because, let's face it, sometimes we're around people who their needs become draining on our souls. And so I found myself going down this path. So when we look at how the deception is coming, it's on its way, right? It's on its way. It's trying to find a way in. It's trying to work in through the people around you. It's trying to get to you. And that's why when, let's say, we're going out and we're going to chase our dreams, I have talked about this many times. People come out of the woodworks, like out of the, like, where'd you come from? And then they hold you back somehow, in some way. And honestly, it probably wasn't their intention. It wasn't their mission to set you back in any way, shape, or form. However, what they don't recognize is that puppeteering that's happening behind the scenes. And so while they're justified in their own actions and responses, they don't recognize what this effect is having on you. But when we pop out of the third dimension, and when we're viewing things from the fifth, sixth dimension, we're able to see things differently. And so for us, we have, being the third dimension, we have a lot of floaters that are hanging around that are always looking for someone to overtake. And that's why it's so important to be careful around drugs and alcohol, people who are drinking, because they are very easily puppeteered, especially if they indulge in alcohol frequently. So alcohol, this was explained to me that when you go into a blackout, the reason why your body is still up and moving and running around, but you don't remember anything, has to do with the toxicity levels of your physical body, that your soul can no longer reside inside of it. Now, this is just food for thought. And so your soul has to exit, which is why you black out, but your body is still going, and your soul now becomes, or your body now becomes, an empty portal for another entity to come in and take over. And so there was a spiritual photographer who went into a bar, and he actually captured, I'm all looking around my room. He'd actually captured spirits hanging out all around inside. And they were essentially just waiting for people's levels of toxicity to rise so high that they could come in. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, that makes perfect sense. If you guys know anything about my story, I spent a lot of time blacked out. I I went a little too far with that Captain Morgan and Four Locos, and actually I wasn't too picky, but that's how I'd like to start my night. Um, And so I've had quite a bit of experience waking up and being regretful and being like, I did what? Or just not even wanting to hear it. They'd be like, you wouldn't believe. I'm like, yeah, I do. I don't want to hear it. So that's the problem. And then what is crazy is I started hearing very similar stories, even across state lines, about my behavior. So I definitely feel like there was a point in time where some spirit knew, like, oh, just, wait until 11 a.m. and we'll just hop on in there, like that's a free ride. Yeah, 11 a.m., 7 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., but anyways, by the grace of God, I am no longer in those positions anymore. So we're looking at soul contracts and toxic relationships. So our soul contracts, they can be positive. They can be your best friends. They can be someone that you're really close to for a moment in time that really helps you get through rough times. It's like you've been sent angels, and those can be your soul contracts. You can also have, though, toxic relationships that are also soul contracts. Now, some of these are going to be from past lives where you have contracted with this person because you have not yet figured it out. And you may even take on different roles, like, okay, well, you be the mom and I'll be the daughter this time, and you be grandma and then they'll be grandpa, and let's try and figure it out. Let's work it from a different angle. We're going to figure this out. And then there's also soul contracts for those who are higher level spiritual beings that come in and they are contracted to take out a dark entity, to take out a low vibrational person. Now, and I'm not talking about death. I'm stating we're building paper trails. And I'll use a toxic relationship as an example. If you find yourself in a position where you are in a physically abusive relationship, that other person is clearly easily puppeteered and has more deception inside of them. And because of their low vibrations, things like anger, jealousy, those things will be amplified. And so we are contracted to come down, and again, a toxic relationship as an example. And let's say you have a child with this person, and it's time for you to now go and fight them. You have, and in the third dimension, you have all of this evidence. You have everything that you need in order to win this battle, essentially. But you have to have the motivation and determination to execute this. So we have instances where it is easier to just stay. And now, especially when we have children involved. And I know that that may sound messed up, but when you are in a physically abusive relationship, you feel like you need to be there to protect. Maybe this person makes more money. Maybe they're coming in and they're trying to take everything away from you when you already don't have anything. And so they've essentially cornered you into a position where you are very vulnerable and you don't have much to fight with. And you're not sure that the few things that you do have to fight with are going to be enough. And it's terrifying. It's scary. And so now we're looking beyond karma. So this could be karmic. Of course, I'm not going to take that completely off the table. You could be going back and forth in this abusive relationship over and over and over because you guys are doing it to each other lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. But we also have that spiritual warfare aspect. So I challenge you to look around in your life and see what areas you are fighting. Where have you created a soul contract? Because it's never easy. It always seems like a mountain that you're going to have to climb to be able to get over, to get to the next side. Or if you think about this world like a video game, to get to the next level, how are you making your mark across the grid? What is your paper trail that you personally are creating in other people's lives? Does it have to do with taking someone to court and fighting them, creating a paper trail, making those police reports if necessary? So I think that's probably the best example that I have. I also look at soul contracts in the form of, and I'm going to touch on this, and I got to go. I got to go to Costco. Um, so in the form of the dark night of the soul, right? You have actually contracted with a person that feels like maybe a twin flame if you've gone down that rabbit hole. That this person is the female or male version of you, or you're meant to be together, and or you that you've spent lifetimes together. And what happens is, and in this soul contract, that one of you, and I'm gonna, because I'm speaking to you and we're gonna put ourselves in these shoes, is going to back out. So let's say that other person just like completely drops the ball. You're now in your dark night of the soul. You're confused. And that's the number one thing about the enemy, is that their goal is to confuse you, distort you, install you. Whatever your process, whatever your mission is, whatever direction you're headed, the more time it takes for you to get there, the more that the enemy is winning. So with these dark nights of the soul, they won't be brought to you until you're ready to handle them. Now, I have heard of people getting caught into the dark night of the soul for, months and years at a time. That's not the goal. The goal is to recognize that you have been taken so off kilter that you can't eat, you can't sleep. This is all that you're thinking about. You're obsessing over it, and then get out of it. Like, recognize your worth. You are worth so much more than being trapped, than being stuck in bed all day, not eating or overeating, not getting up, not moving, not going to work, becoming dependent upon other people to take care of you. No, 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 no. That is not your mission. You have a mission. You have something that's been placed on your heart. You are here for a reason, and you have the power to execute your mission. But you have to believe in yourself. No matter what obstacle you come up against, you can fight it. You can win. You will beat this. And so yes, again, this is all about spiritual growth, meaningful relationships, your life's purpose, and then healing and karma. So again, it's not always karmic. There comes a point in time where you start to recognize everything is happening for you and not to you. And that is a very sweet spot to be in. All right. I love you guys.